roll that. I'm gonna, I feel like I'm missing something. Maybe not. No, you're fine.
It's like,
Do you want a water?
no,
What?
I'm fine.
I'm gonna get you one in case, because what if you get thirsty? I have like all of these flavors.
I did want a water. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we are recording. We are recording sound.
It's official.
Why are these balls? I think,
Do the cats actually, like, I feel like my cat would love this.
I tried. Apollo like liked it for like a second, and then he was like, okay, wait. There's like a way to like, when they're...
So they'll just like go off?
Yeah, I think they were like on the like always on, because they're only supposed to go off for like 10 seconds and then go back off.
This is riveting material.
I can't be the only one who hears you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room.
It is. Okay, well, they may or may not just go off the whole time.
There you go. That one's
Oh, yeah,
off.
okay, that's good.
So if you just touch it now?
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
okay, cool. So that one should, like, any moment now.
Maybe something's playing with it.
Okay, we are going to... Ah! We're doing great.
They're crushing it. I can also just hold this.
Maybe we'll do this. No, I think... Will this fit on these? No. No.
They're like,
Okay, maybe we'll just have one. We'll, like, sandwich it in between
in the two? Yeah.
Okay, and then this one can just do something. Whatever.
It's perfect.
It doesn't matter. If they fall, they fall. I
this one
need to
working?
make a stand.
That's just gonna be like a decoration. I think this one's dead.
Okay, we're also gonna run Ghost Tube. Have you played with Ghost Tube?
No, what's Ghost Tube?
So it's like a modern day spirit box kind of.
Oh, cool.
So it just spits out random words, but it's supposed to work with, it actually works with like electromagnetic field. Like the same thing with like the apps that measure distances and stuff like that. So it's pretty accurate.
Cool.
And we've gotten some cool things on it as well.
Nice.
I'm gonna record this.
Absolutely.
See? Right away.
Absolutely.
There is a ghost up here that is quite like talkative sometimes.
Oh, that's cool. Don't you have a ghost cat too?
Yes, I have a ghost cat.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I don't know that I've ever like encountered a like ghost animal.
Yeah.
I don't really know like what, I couldn't like pinpoint what any entity that I've experienced is.
Really?
Yeah, it's just been like the experience itself and like knowing that something's there.
Right, interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool.
But I would love to meet a ghost cat. That's great.
Well, I don't ever see him. Like most of my stuff, like how I experience the paranormal is auditory, or like feeling. Like you just can tell, right? I have seen things, but the frequency in which I see them is like keys.
I thought it said geese. I was like, a ghost goose?
The frequency in which I see them is like few and far between. I hear things a lot more.
Yeah.
Or feel them. So like with the...
Idiot.
Okay.
She's like, you should be seeing more.
Elemental.
Oh.
See, this one like spits out a lot.
Yeah, that's...
And sometimes it'll be like very quiet, like it won't have anything. It's very weird. And sometimes people won't get anything. But Jacob and I, when we came up, we were getting like full sentences. Sometimes it was wild.
Oh, that's cool.
And
Was it like insulting? Is this like an insulting ghost
Yeah,
going
he's
on?
like a little, the one, if it's the same one, he's a little feisty,
I
but
like that,
in
though.
a funny way.
Yeah.
And like the last time I had my friend Alex up here, and she had said, we're going to call you Michelle or something like that, because Michelle, the name Michelle had come through. And I was like, no, I think it's a guy. And it said, absolutely not, or like, no way or something. And then she was like, okay. It was like very like conversational. It was
So
really
have you
cool.
like settled on a name for it?
No, we asked him to give a name, but he hasn't yet. So I'm like, whenever you feel like giving a name, you can give a name.
Yeah, he'll come through at some point.
Oh, but so with the ghost cat, like I feel it more like, you know how you feel your cat's jumping up on the bed?
Yeah, that's
like
right.
that feeling a lot.
Yeah.
But my cat's never there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh yeah. And then it was just like good validation to like, it's like I fucking knew I had a ghost cat when someone else saw him, and then another person saw him as well. Like,
So they
not
actually like
related.
saw him? Mm-hmm. What does he look like?
Black.
Cute.
Both of them. Two
Yeah.
people that are not related.
Like saw a black cat.
In my place, which is wild. And
That's
they thought he was. They weren't like, oh, it's a ghost cat. They thought
They were
he
like,
was-
it's a cat.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's like, oh, look at that cat. It's a ghost.
yeah.
Like,
They thought I had two cats, both of them.
Wow.
And I was like, no, I have.
How far
one.
apart did they see them?
Like a year. Yeah.
So he's like around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Plus, if he's jumping on your bed, I feel like that's what cats do when they, like, if cats sleep at the base of your bed, they're like trying to protect you.
Yeah.
And cats that sleep like next to you want to be protected.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's cute.
Yeah,
that he's
he's
like
just
trying
like-
to protect you.
Yeah, he's like a little guardian.
Yeah.
Because my alive cat, is very much like a baby. So he's like up here.
So that cat's like, all right, I got you.
Right, like
No
somebody
worries.
has to do it. This
That's
motherfucker
great.
isn't doing anything. Okay, so this is my guest today, Jess Brandon. Is that your like?
That's my last name. You nailed it. I hope the ghost calls you an Indian again.
Tell us about yourself. Like, what do you do? Are you still creative director at Cantrip?
Yeah, I'm the creative director for a like THC beverage company.
Which is so yummy.
It's yummy, stressful. It's great.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for, I guess, almost 4 years at this point.
We're gonna see how this. I'm just gonna drink it down.
There's no way that's gonna work. I've never seen someone try to drink out of the like straw hole.
I don't have a straw, guys. Okay,
I feel like we need somebody that can zoom in on this happening right now.
Don't make me laugh.
I mean, how could I not look at you?
I just want to get it down. Is that low enough in the?
There's no THC in that drink, even though it seems like. Yeah, that's the move for sure.
Yeah. Well, I needed to get it down before, because
Okay,
otherwise
I
it
got
would have
it.
spilled out.
Logic.
Okay.
Framed.
You've been framed.
Framed. Right. Set up. You're correct.
Yeah.
Um.
But yeah, I've been doing that for 4 years. That's like graphic design and creative and everything has been at least somewhat connected to my career since I got out of college. So
Yeah.
it's been a windy road, but here we are.
Right,
Yeah.
Since I met you, I feel
Yeah,
like.
I got a degree in studio art, which was a choice that I made. But, loved it, but wasn't really sure what the practicality aspect was.
What does that mean necessarily? Like studio art.
I did
like,
painting.
Oh, so just like, oh, I didn't even know you could get. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, like why would you be able to?
No, I mean that's really cool though.
It was
I
cool,
never
yeah.
knew
A
that.
lot of my like peers ended up going to like a post-bac program or getting an MFA.
Yeah.
But it's just you have to have so many resources to be able to like put time and effort into pursuing art as a
Yeah.
like true art as a career. And I also kind of got a little, I don't know, I didn't want this thing that I love to become this thing I had to do. So I just started working in graphic design. I got into grad school for art therapy in Philly, which is when I like started getting really into like ghost hunting and stuff.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's like I moved to Philly after I got into grad school at Drexel and then deferred for a year because I wanted to find funding for it and didn't end up ever finding. I know it was nasty. The cost of higher ed in this country is insane, but especially for like, you know, something like art therapy where you're just. I did have an uncle that lived right outside of Philadelphia while I was there.
Really?
Yeah. Who is now deceased. So, but yeah, I just couldn't justify the cost. So
Yeah.
I just spent 2 years living in Philly for like no reason.
I
But
did not know that.
yeah, but that's where like Eastern State Penitentiary is. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So that's
Sean
where I
has
did.
been there, I think.
Yeah.
Did you went there? Did you do any investigating while you were there?
Yeah, I like met up with this group online. It was actually like a group for a true crime podcast that I listened to, but like since I lived in Philly, I didn't have any friends, and I was like, I need to meet people. I was living there with my ex-wife, and I had 2 close friends that were there, but nobody else. And so I went to this meetup group, and turns out that a lot of true crime fans are also very much into the paranormal. So
Yeah.
we started going. We like organized 2 different ghost hunts, and one was at Eastern State.
Oh my
So we went.
Okay, we have to talk about that.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
That's like, it was, pretty eye-opening in terms of like actually going out and like looking for something intentionally.
Yeah.
That was like the main part of like my experience in that. So yeah, I was living in Philly and then I left because why was I there? And now I'm here again.
You were there to ghost time.
Yeah, exactly. That was like.
So what did you find there? Was there anything significant that you guys found or captured while you were there at the penitentiary?
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, the penitentiary itself is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like it's quite sad. Like it's history and, how people were initially treated and kept really in that space. But now it's like this historical kind of area of Philadelphia. And we probably got there at like...
Suffocate.
Well, for sure. We were there, I think we got there around like 8 at night and stayed till maybe like 11. And like there's nobody else there, it was just us and this person who like we paid to have access to the property.
I was about to say, did you sneak in or
No, we paid, because otherwise we wouldn't have had like, I mean, it's still a penitentiary. It's pretty hard to get into if you're...
it's still active.
No, but it's like built like it was.
I thought you were there was like a wing that was still utilized for something.
Excuse me.
Can we help you? Are you over my story? So there was probably like 11 or 12 of us. And we brought like some like we had like a, what are those things called?
An EMF detector.
Yeah, an EMF detector. We had a lot of thermometers, like digital thermometers. And then somebody with us, I forget her name, but she had done like a lot of this kind of stuff. And she brought a beach ball and a dollar bill. And she had these like experiences, like putting a beach ball like in like a room that they were suspect that something was there and walking away from it and like coming back and seeing like how it had moved. She had never seen like the ball move itself, but it would be like in a totally different place in the
13.
room. Like when she would come back to the room with like no airflow or anything. Cause obviously there's like very normal reasons why a beach ball might like float around a room.
Sure, yeah.
But these were like very closed, like not breezy spaces, I guess.
She should have put like cameras up to like watch.
So we did have a camera up. Actually, we brought cameras. A couple of kind of crazy things happened. There's a part of the penitentiary. So there's like wings where the cells were built originally with no door, except for a door that went to this like little outside, like every cell or room had a like little outside yard, and the walls were so high that like you couldn't hear somebody in the room, like in the yard next to you. So every like
Look over there.
every prisoner had their own yard, but it was
Yeah.
like super small, and then their cell, and then like a door to like feed food through, and that was it. Like this very like tiny space. And then they realized like you have to be able to get in and out of a cell. So they added this door where you had to like bow down to get in and out of these cells. Wow. And so there's like wings of these things, like huge, like just, you can't see in or out. Then they had like more conventional kind of like prison bar areas. And then they had these wings for like people who were had some sort of diagnosis or you can't. I mean, it's just like really riveted by my story. But there's like a mental like wing basically. Most of those are open to the public tours, but there are some areas that are not safe to enter because the building is crumbling.
Right.
So we went in some of the like medical rooms and things like that. And then they let us down into the like person who was there. It was just like a security guard basically. Like he wasn't giving us a tour or anything. Let us down into this like isolation area, which most of the prisoners were isolated to some degree because penitentiaries were not just for punishment but for like rehabilitation and like moving prisoners back towards God. And so they were quite isolating because they thought that would have like a more significant effect on these poor people. But there was this area it was like outside the main area and kind of down underground. And the ceiling in the middle like hallway was super, super high. And it was like all kind of like crumbling and just like really dilapidated, yeah. And then the rooms off of it had these like sloped ceilings and like it was quite like claustrophobic. Like they'd use it as like these isolation areas. And the security guard who was showing us around was basically saying like this is where a lot of the like anybody that comes for like these kinds of investigations, like this is where a lot of the activity happens. So I had a digital thermometer and it was like the middle of summer. So it was like, and in Philly it gets pretty hot. So it was probably like, 80 degrees. And there's no like air conditioning or anything in these spaces. And, you know, we were like I would just be randomly like taking the air temperature. It was like one of the like kind of gun looking ones that you can just like shoot. It tells you the temperature of like wherever you're hitting. And like, you know, you go underground, you expect the temperature to lower some, but you could still see out. Like next to me, the temperature was like 78. And then when I like put it up to the side, it was like 79. It was like super close. But then like I pointed it like ahead and up and it was like 52. And so we were like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, and like, it was just that one area.
Yeah.
And like right at the moment that I like took that reading, the girl next to me's flashlight like flickered. So it was this like kind of conjunction of things happening. Nobody really felt anything, but it was the first thing that happened like in that space that we were like, ooh, like something. Yeah. It was also just like a very uncomfortable space. Like it was such a like, we turned off all the lights for a little while and just like sat there and tried to feel what it would feel like if you were like isolated in this room, and it was like quite unpleasant.
Yeah, of course.
Because like you're kind of stooped down and like it was just, and we all kind of were like, kind of want to get out of here. Like this isn't like feeling great.
Yeah.
So that was like the first thing that happened, and it was like mild but like interesting, I guess. And we were talking about it for a while, but you know, we did walked through the rest of the jail or penitentiary, and then decided to set up a camera, and we put 2 cameras up.
Ooh. That's relevant.
Yeah, we put 2 cameras up, one on the dollar and one on the beach ball. And we put them in these hallways, turned off all the lights, and they were like cameras, like dark cameras, so you could like see.
Yeah, like night vision.
Yeah. And just all sat there for like 20 minutes. Like we couldn't see the dollar or the beach ball. So there were 2 groups in different areas of the penitentiary. And we sat there, and I don't know, we were probably sitting, just a couple of minutes, and there was this like very loud like bang, and you know, we all kind of jumped a little bit, and we decided to turn on the flashlights, and I was in the room like in the hallway with the beach ball, and the beach ball, we'd put it in front of this other cell like that had also like another cold reading, and the beach ball had moved from in front of the cell like, I don't know, 15 feet down the hallway. Like there was no reason for that to have happened.
Like
it was like moved. Yeah, it was like we couldn't find it for a second.
Right.
We were like, what is this?
Like,
where the fuck is the beach ball? Yeah. The dollar, which I didn't know this at the time. This happened like on the other hallway. It was outside the cell and it was inside the cell. Like it had gone through the bars. And like
I would have lost my shit.
Yeah, it was crazy. First, I don't know what happened with that. The camera like didn't pick that up, so like we didn't have any like, it just like was there.
Which is
like,
also suspicious.
Yeah, super suspicious.
Yeah.
But it was like, that was like, I love science. I try to explain everything in my life that happens to me.
Better
like,
way to be
right
when you're investigating.
And so I was like, okay, well, even if maybe when we all gasped or whatever, like the beach ball like blew down the hallway, whatever.
15 feet.
Yeah, sure. Just blew. I was like, I can convince myself that this wasn't paranormal, but the dollar moving through bars like into a cell, like, and it was like laid like pretty flat out, and it was like crumpled like in. Like that's not a thing. Like,
no.
Yeah.
Wind, no matter how much, is not gonna like pick something up and be like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And I'd never like seen the dollar trick before. I didn't know that like
that.
ghosts had any interest in dollars, but this woman who brought it was like, yeah, this is like a
interesting.
Yeah. So that was we were pretty blown away by that. And even the security guard who was with us was like, that's crazy.
I mean, that's incredible because people, I mean, it's not like, I haven't been on an investigation, but I really want to go.
Oh yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, because like, I mean, ghost tours are one thing. I like to learn the history of things.
Yeah.
But I want to experience things as well. Like I'm actually seeking it out. And I know, like, you know, for example, like the TV shows, a lot of them, some of them are a little bit more, you know.
They're very like,
you know.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and some of them are like, you know, probably set up or exaggerated or whatever. I think some of them are better than others at trying to like prove why something would happen and whatnot. But they're also there for a very extended times. You know, they'll be there like literally overnight for like 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
Some of them were there, they're like locked in for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that have experiences that work in a place. So they're there every day, all day. So they're going to have experiences. But some people go on investigations and they get nothing, you know, because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like,
which,
that's more common than
Right.
you would think, even in a haunted space, because it has to be the right time, the right place, whatever, maybe the right people that
Yeah, the right vibe.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened with the second one. I ended up not being able to go on it because I was going to be out of town, but they went to like a cemetery
Yeah.
and literally nothing happened. Like they did the same kinds of things, like
this.
had the same like equipment and all of that. And they just like, I was talking to one of my friends who went and she's like, yeah, there was like nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's I like moments like that too, because it's I don't like when things get I don't want things to get like a bad rep for being exaggerated or set
Yeah.
up or anything like that. It's better when you have when things actually happen, they're actually happening.
Not all of us.
Okay. And then when things aren't happening, they're not happening. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That's like an honest review sort of thing.
Yeah.
I also don't. Do you think that cemeteries are haunted?
I think it depends. I wouldn't say like most cemeteries I feel like are places of like there are parts of cemeteries that I feel like would be more likely to be haunted, but I don't like there's if you go to have you been to Cresson here? First of all, just beautiful. Like it's just
Yeah.
a nice place to be. It's very peaceful feeling and like it has a great view of the skyline. But there's this area of it that's like all children. And so it's like a very like sad kind of, but it doesn't, I've never been in a cemetery and felt, there's something here.
Me
Like
either.
I used to like run in cemeteries and
Yeah.
like, I just have always felt very peaceful.
Me too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like, I know that there are plenty of people in so many cemeteries around the world that are probably not at rest, but like it just feels like that's not the space that they
Yeah.
would choose to be or that they would
Agreed.
like be stuck, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
That's something I you're the first person I've talked to about that, but I feel the same way. I always feel like cemeteries are always so peaceful to me and just
Yeah.
like very quiet.
Yeah.
And like I used to go hang out at cemeteries.
Oh, same. Yeah.
I did, but and just like go eat lunch or
Yeah.
just like relax and like read a book or
Can
something.
you see me?
No, we can't see you, but we can hear you. We
Would love
to
to
see if
see
you touch
you.
these balls, or if you if you
You
touch
tell
the
it goes,
balls,
touch these balls.
touch the balls, then we'll see you. I don't know, like if cemeteries, I'm sure that some of them are, but I think that has to do more with like the actual land itself, like if it's like a native land or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't see, because cemeteries are just places of rest, right?
Right.
So like to me, they're very, very quiet. I've never ever felt any sort of presence in a cemetery. Maybe like, feelings of sadness, but I honestly think, because I do believe that people, like living people, can also sort of like haunt a space as well with their feelings.
Yeah.
And with like a space with that much mourning,
Tradition.
it would feel sad and heavy. So I
Yeah.
think more that's the feeling. I don't know. I'm very interested. I want to talk to more people maybe that have, maybe New Orleans and places like that, because
Yeah.
it's just the place, you know. It's
That
less
would
to
be
do
super
with the
interesting.
cemeteries,
Yeah.
but more to do with the land.
Well, I think, that's like, I mean, the reason I've always enjoyed being in cemeteries, like even after I started experiencing like death in my own life, where like people I loved passed, and I'd have like went to my first funerals and like kind of started to have those experiences that like a lot of kids like don't necessarily have any association with them. Like I just feel like I'm with people, but I'm not. Like I feel like I'm not alone, but I am I feel solitary, but with company. And like that I feel like is like there's not really anywhere else that I can think of that has that feeling.
Yeah.
And so and I mean there are cemeteries of like, or like graveyards or like unmarked areas of the world that have plenty, I'm sure are quite haunted, but the kind of ones that we would visit or that we would go to on a regular basis where like you might actually like attend a funeral or something, like I just feel like it's not, why there? Like
Right.
just because their body is there,
wouldn't
like that's
stay
not,
there.
yeah. Like what connection does that person have to that really?
No, unless like, I was about to say unless something like tragic happened to them and they're
Yeah.
trying to like let it be known or something. Maybe that's why they're stuck. But even then, they'd probably be in the place that that tragic thing happened in.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe if somebody
Lost.
died in a cemetery, like, well, maybe they're lost.
Yeah. Maybe if someone died on that land.
Yeah.
That's interesting also that Jess and I I feel as much as there's a big spider up there. That's nice.
Oh. No mosquitoes.
Just adds to the spooky decor.
I love a spider.
I love a spider too. Catch all the bugs. I feel like we have like a lot of parallels, and like whenever we talk, it's apparent. We'll be like, oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, me too. And that's, I think, just like a testament to like you attract sort of what you need, or like the people that are similar to you without even knowing. And I think if you're more of like a sensitive person to anything, or like to vibes or feelings or anything like that, it just happens, kind of like magnetism in your life.
Yeah.
But I also grew up in funerals, like a lot. My grandmother she died at 105. And so, I mean, girl, we were at like funerals all the time.
All the
It was
time.
like a weekly occurrence. We were at a funeral because like her friends were just always dying. So like I grew up
Unfortunately,
in
that's that
funerals,
age, yeah.
And to me, like the difference is that I wasn't losing many people that were close to me, like super close to me. So I had this really weird detachment to death. Like I didn't ever think of it much. Like it was just inside. It was just kind of like something that was part of life and like something that we did.
Yeah.
Kind of like going to church or something, you know? And I never felt afraid at funeral homes. I actually thought about being like a mortician, like the beauty aspect of it when I started going into makeup. And that's something that I'm thinking about again, only because I'm doing this and I'm getting really, really interested in it. And I feel like you, where I don't ever feel, I'm more afraid of the living than I am of the dead, you know?
100%.
And so I've always felt very comfortable in spaces that hold a lot of death. It doesn't like spook me or scare me necessarily. It more like fascinates me and intrigues me. And I've never heard anyone else say that like it's a place, like a funeral or like a cemetery is a place you can go and you're there solo but not, you know, and that's the vibe, and it is.
It's nice to like, and I mean, not to discount anybody's experiences with like traumatic death or death being hard, like it's a hard thing, but like what you just said, like death is life, like it is the one inevitable, you know, like what is that Ben Franklin quote? Like, the only thing that's like a sure thing is death and taxes. And like, it's such if you can detach yourself from the fear of death, like you are so much more of a happy person. I also think it like eliminates the need for a lot of things that cause humans problems, like these like, I mean, we can talk about religion all day, but like these very destructive things that we've created to deal with our own mortality is quite, that's the thing that scares me the most is like, and like with ghosts and with, you know, anything paranormal or unexplained, I think it's why I have no reason to fear that. I've not had experiences that like create fear in me for that. I'm only fascinated by it, and I'm only like, and like, it's cemeteries are. I didn't go to a lot of funerals growing up. Like you know, all of my grandparents are deceased now, and like some of their friends, my you know, other extended family. So I've been to like a number of them, but it's always been really sad, but it's never been like scary. And
oh, it's cool.
Oh, that's really going crazy. It's
like
really
doing its
lighten
thing.
up. It's into it. Wow, that is
Holy
crazy.
shit. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's like really. Okay, now it's less.
Oh,
Wait, is it my coffee?
it's like you should have a straw.
Turn. Oh yeah, it's like really. I'm gonna turn my thing on Do Not Disturb.
Hey, that thing's going too.
You guys! Okay, that's the first time that's captured. One time in the beginning of Alex's, but that's the second time, I guess, that that's happened.
Maybe it's like, it either like that he's like agreeing with us or like doesn't agree with us at all. He's like, cemeteries are haunted.
It's fine.
The first time I ever had like a paranormal anything, I had this neighbor that lived next to me when I was like super, super young.
He's hiding.
Scary. He's like, yes. And she was probably in her like 50s or 60s at the time. And she got really close with my friend Emily, who lived up the street from me, and they would just like hang out on their porch, and like it was cute. And she and her husband ended up moving out to Marietta or something. And Emily would go visit them occasionally, and she invited me to go with them at one point. And I was like, okay. Like I probably was maybe 10, maybe 12, I don't know. And she's like, do you guys want to like go look for ghosts? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like what? I don't believe in ghosts. Like,
wait, how old are you again? Sorry.
Like 10 or 12.
10, okay,
yeah, probably 10. And I'd had a lot of anxiety as a child, and I like thought about paranormal stuff a lot, but I never had a reason to like I wasn't like, ghosts are real. Like,
yeah.
She took us to like an old Civil War battlefield, and like, she's like, okay, we're just gonna walk through this field, and you're gonna like count how many times you feel something. Like just feel something, like whether it's cold or scared or whatever. And I was like, okay. And I was like, even as a 10-year-old, like pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
And I remember walking that field and passing through, again, it was summer in Atlanta, so quite hot. Like 5 like very cold areas of the like field. And I was like, that's weird. And I'm like, maybe it's just weather. Like, I don't know. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to answer. Like, I don't want to, like, I was like, I don't want to say 5 and then have them be like, I counted 5 too, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, how many? And both of them at the same time said 5. And I was like, oh, okay. So like maybe something is happening. Iron. So that was like the first time I was like, maybe there's like something more than like what I think is.
29
Oh, there was
more.
actually like 29 more. Wow.
That's interesting. That's an interesting experiment. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like the Estes method of like a checks and balances way to measure something. Because like if you experience something, you're like, okay, maybe I'm envisioning, maybe I'm making stuff up. Yeah, a touch.
Yeah.
But if 3 different people feel the same thing, it's probably not
and like,
coincidence.
the paranormal stuff is so difficult to investigate. Yeah, I know. I agree. Like it's so difficult to investigate in like a scientific way. Because as soon as science proves something exists, the nature of it becomes not paranormal. Like it becomes scientific. And like it's really hard to put these kinds of things into like a rigorous experiment that like you could then say, okay, I can point to this is real. And so you have to come up with ways of identifying phenomenon that are outside of that. And like either like writing it down or like not letting your experience influence other people's, I think is super key. And like that's like like even as a 10-year-old, I was like, I know that like they believe this stuff more than I do. And so I don't want to like go first because like they'll just validate what I'm saying. But then I was like, oh, I'm validating what they're saying. And so that was definitely like a step towards like me becoming like interested in that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then like the weirdest thing ever happened that night, which like this could lead to like a whole different conversation about like children and adults, but we fell asleep on the couch of like watching that movie The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston and what's his face? Kevin Costner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right?
Yeah. We fell asleep on the couch and I woke up like in a bedroom in a different outfit. Like it was so odd. And like that still to this day like freaks me out because I'm like, what happened?
That is weird.
Like I was like, maybe I was just like a tired kid and I just like forgot, like maybe I was like asleep and like
no, that's really
Libby was
weird.
like, come and like change into your PJs and go to bed. Like and Emily did too, my friend. Like we were both in this bed in a and I still have no idea what happened.
Weird.
Like it's super odd. That's a little scary to me. Like what what that could possibly mean is a little bit terrifying.
I mean, like not remembering something is scary. You know what I mean? Like having like blackout space that you're like, when did I do this?
Yeah,
that
it wasn't like I was drunk. I was 10. But yeah, that was odd. So that whole day was just like a weird day.
Yeah. And then you were like, oh, maybe this shit is real.
Yeah, I was like, maybe there's ooh, there's like things about the world that I don't understand
Yeah.
as a 10-year-old. So yeah, that was a weird one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was your first experience.
Yeah.
So, like religion, I was watching, me and my friend Jacob have been like very into the alien possible situation that's happening right now.
I am
We're like deep
fully
in the,
obsessed with aliens.
deep in the hole. Yeah, I mean anything that's out of the realm of normal things
Yeah.
I'm into. We were looking at like old footage because apparently tomorrow new like things from wreckage is going to be like released.
Oh.
Like they're going to like release footage of actual UFO crashes and things with like full interviews. I'll send you the thing.
Yeah,
Jacob sent
definitely.
it to me and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait.
That's all I'll be doing tomorrow.
But we were looking at like older, like there's like this footage that's supposedly from like Project Blue Book years ago. Is it real? You know, like we don't know. It's like, it doesn't look real because in our brains we're like, this is not real,
Yeah.
you know? But Jacob was like, I mean, it's possible that it's like one of those things that it just seems so unrealistic that it could be. And we're
Yeah.
just like, that's not real, you know, blowing it off. But he said something that was like really interesting because he was like, it could be something that was like recreated, something that actually happened in that investigation. And because all of these files have been currently, they're released now for like open,
Yeah.
you know, public. You can find them from NASA. And so it's not all just conspiracy theorists talking.
Yeah.
It's actually like our government being like, yep, that happened. And this is what we found, you know? So if you want to seek it out, you can. But in the speech,
Success.
in the speech, they even say that. They say like basically all of human suffering is caused by dogma. And they were like, be more specific. And they're like religious and political dogma.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that.
Well, it's so fascinating to me that we can like classify religion as like this thing that like we use pretty much throughout human history to determine everything. Like when you look back at like laws and like societal structure and all this kind of thing, like we use this completely unproven thing
Yeah.
to determine like how we're all going to live our life. And then people look at people like us who are like talking about ghosts or like interested in aliens, and like even from a scientific standpoint, the likelihood of aliens existing is so astronomically high
Yeah.
that like so much higher than like the probability that like there's like a dude named God just chilling up in the sky somewhere and like playing puppet master with all of us. But we like poo-poo all this shit and we're just like,
know.
oh, you believe in ghosts? Like, who are you? And it's like,
Yeah.
you believe in fucking
You
like
believe that
literally
guy
a
survived
ghost.
in the belly of a whale
Yeah,
for
and,
like
like,
a week.
Some
Like,
dude
get the
came
fuck
back
out
to
of my
life. Like,
face.
what? That's
literally
the
so,
same
like,
thing
a
we're talking
zombie
about.
came to life.
Yeah.
You know, like, come on now.
Yeah, it's so frustrating that it's and
It
it's
is.
used in such a horrific way where
Mm-hmm.
like nobody's like pointing to ghosts and being like, that's why, you know, you have to go to church every day, or like that's
Yeah.
why you can't be gay because this dude's gonna come haunt you. It's
Yeah.
like so stupid.
I'm reading Robert Temple's book right now. It's A New Science to Heaven or something like that. I'll put it here. It's amazing. He's saying that the space and like paranormal aspects used to purely survive in like the spiritual realm, right? Very
Yeah.
like metaphysical, spiritual, like all these things. And I think that's just like religion again, like playing its part in its hand and like
Yeah.
trying to explain everything away through God. Yes, we are sitting in chairs, ghost chairs.
The ghost wants a chair too.
But like he spent a lot of his life basically researching plasma. And so now I'm heavy deep into the plasma universe, which is very still misunderstood or not really understood by science, but it is proven by science at the same time. It's like one of the things that's there, but like not like a normal thing that people really know. You know, like if I'm sitting here talking to people about plasma, they're just like, what are you,
Cool.
like plasma in our bodies, like in our blood, like no, like, but he was saying that plasma offers a lot of possible explanations, like scientific explanations to the paranormal. And the more I dive into that, I do think that. I think paranormal is just like science that we don't really understand yet. It
And
doesn't
that's
have
it.
to be this like mystical thing or a spiritual religious thing,
Yeah.
right? It could be just stuff that we do not comprehend. I found it very interesting that even like the flame on a candle, which is something that everyone's familiar with, it has very similar properties to, like, it's basically like a very small thing of plasma.
Yeah.
What the sun and stars are made out of, and like these plasma orbs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, isn't plasma like the most common like state of matter in the
Yes.
universe? But like
Yes.
and fire is the most common form of it on Earth.
Yes.
But like you don't learn. People are like, okay, liquid, solid, gas.
Yeah.
But and plasma.
Yeah, and we don't, like, people just don't really think about it because it's not something that we can see really or understand properly. But even the flame, for example, that, for example, is a plasma, right? Just like a very like earthly bound version. And the more you look into plasma, the more you realize, like, oh, they're like studying this heavy for things like time travel, interdimensional travel, multiverse studies, quantum physics, if you will. And that, when I read that, I was like, that, it dinged a bell, because if you think about anything like Wiccan or like magic, anything ritual wise, you're using candles, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're always supposed to light a candle. And if that in fact opens up portals,
Gone.
she's warm.
Don't worry, we're still doing this thing.
We'll see. Oh, it's going off again. Did you touch that?
Nope.
Shit.
Oh,
I love it here. We're getting so much stuff today. Oh wait, where's mine?
We're crushing it. If we start talking about aliens, we're gonna be here all day.
Of course.
Of course.
No, but in that, so with the plasma thing,
Mhm.
right? That's the possibility. And also I learned today in chapter 13 that our physical bodies, is obviously covered in bacteria. Which
Oh yeah,
we know.
so much bacteria.
So much bacteria.
There's
It's
just
disgusting.
bacteria everywhere.
But something that was actually published in 2015 by a scientist, like in an actual scientific article, they actually know now that we actually have also like a cloud of bacteria surrounding us
Checks out.
that
We're disgusting.
for feet out,
Oh.
right? And
My little bacteria aura.
yeah, a little bacteria aura, basically. And basically it's all of our old, like, basically 10% is our physical matter body, and then the 90% is like just this bacteria
Swarm.
cloud. And that bacteria cloud is as specific as like a fingerprint. Like everyone's is different because it came from you. So it's like your essence, right?
Yeah.
So now there's this whole talk of like, is it possible that those are charged, kind of like the Kordylewski clouds and like other plasma things, and like maybe that's like actually kind of when we die and our physical body passes, like, is this all the same thing? And it's like our essence, and then we just leave our physical body. Like, okay.
That's so interesting.
Very.
Yeah. I like that's like one of my all-time favorite things about like this world with anything paranormal, like ghosts, or, if you want to talk about like cryptids or anything like that, or like aliens, like, which I don't believe that aliens are paranormal at all. I think that aliens are just a scientific fact. But I think that when science starts to catch up to like experiences that we've had and are able to articulate, that's where I find like that is the coolest thing, because it's like, yeah, we can study the bacteria on our bodies and this bacterial cloud that we have around us, and it starts to kind of explain experiences that people have had, or like what might be like, left behind, like when we die. And I think like a lot of people, at least from my experience, a lot of people that, are out there like doing ghost hunts and having these kind of, looking for proof that this exists. A lot of them I feel like they might be disappointed. Yeah, it's totally. But like, I feel like a lot of them would be disappointed if science could start to explain like what these experiences are.
Sure.
But like, I feel like that's like the end goal. Like, I think it's like to get to a place where like we can really use like our understanding of life in the world to explain that these things are real.
Yeah, like scientific proof of something. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I haven't really thought about it like that before, but I do think there are people that would be probably disappointed. But I don't feel like that either. Yeah. I feel like that would be rad.
So rad.
I'm like, okay, so it's not just in our heads.
Yeah, or it's not like something that we can't explain. I'm like, I want to explain it. Like, I want there to be, and that's what feels like. Humans have done so much wrong, and one of the things I think we've done really right is like just try to keep understanding more. And I think that it's the more we understand and can spread to the general population, like he's like, that's right. We're here. We're real. I think that's like what will ultimately save us. Like knowledge will save us. And like our, society right now doesn't necessarily think that like having more information that is real and more knowledge that is real is actually valuable. But like to me, like that's the most human thing about us and the thing that's gonna like make us not like deteriorate and explode and like all die off because we couldn't get along.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. My like the thing that keeps me up at night the most, which is like why we don't have proof that aliens like are here, like why there's no solid like well-known the Fermi paradox. And like I don't know if you know about that, but like this idea, I mean, like literally I could talk about this stuff all day, but like the Fermi paradox is this idea that the guy named I think his name is Enrico Fermi like came up with this paradox to explain why as conscious human beings we can't find anyone else, like why we can't find life elsewhere, with the exception of like the potential government cover-ups and things like that.
What is that?
It's like a little sorry bro.
Spiders. That's a really weird looking spider.
Is it a spider? I think it's like I guess it
looks like a spider.
I think it has 3 legs and little like
Pathetic.
really it's like, stop paying attention to bugs. That's actually a part of the Fermi paradox, is like that we're just basically bugs to all these other intelligent life forms. But he like posited that if you take like the most conservative estimate for planets that could support life in the solar system or in the universe, not just our solar system, we'll get to that at some point. But so for every grain of sand on Earth, there's I think 10,000 stars. So that's just an insane amount of stars. Yeah. That's a crazy amount of stars. Yeah. And if you like basically take the most conservative estimates of sun-like stars that are orbited by Earth-like planets, you get like within our like Milky Way alone, it's like something like 100,000 like actual Earth-like planets in our Milky Way that could support life. I'm 36.
How old are you?
Yeah. So within our own Milky Way, there's 100,000 planets that support that could feasibly support life.
How did I die?
How did you die?
We don't know.
We would love to know though.
You don't remember?
He's like, you're getting off the topic of ghosts, and I'm like unimpressed.
Like, anyway, back to me.
And so Fermi kind of figured out a way to explain like why this is the case.
Yeah.
So in the like larger universe, there's 500 billion planets that should support life.
Yeah.
And so he came up with this idea that within the context of a larger theory that we don't need to go into necessarily, that we are either rare, we're first, or we are fucked. And it comes with like this idea that there's this great filter that exists. So agree. All right, cool. Most like intelligent life forms that exist in the universe, of which like it is so the possibility that there isn't intelligent life is so, it's almost zero.
Yeah, right.
That they all experience this thing called the great filter at some point in their evolution, which kills off most like 99.99999% of them, which is why we don't see them. So like if you reach this point in evolution as a species, you're all going to die because you reach a point that is just not sustainable to life forms, which like when you look at like our world, like that's a little scary.
Yeah.
So if we're first, that means that for some reason we haven't reached the great filter yet. And like nobody else has reached the great filter either. Mm. That like all of our, cohorts in the universe are existing in this like very like a state of like, well, we know space is out there, but we don't know what's in it. Like, where is everybody? We don't have the technology to contact them, which is also very unlikely because our planet's super, super young. And in terms of the age of the universe, there's so many other planets that should support life that are billions of years older than us. And if you take that, think about like the life of humanity, like they should be like harnessing the power of like not only their sun, but their whole, galaxy. And like, it's so unlikely that that's the case. if we're rare, it's the only good one. That means that we haven't passed that we've passed the great filter already. That like maybe this kind of filter that is filtering out all of the life in the universe which is why we can't find it, that we've passed it somehow. And that we're like the only one basically within any realm
we
that
survived.
yeah. Also
Pathetic.
yeah,
You keep saying that's like the third time you said pathetic. Okay, we get it.
probably not true. Again, given the age of our species and the size of the universe. The other one is that we just haven't hit the great filter yet, and that like
It's coming.
it's coming and we're just gonna die like everybody else did.
Yeah.
And then there's like, if you take away that theory and say, okay, you know, the great filter doesn't exist, none of those things are true, there's all these other ideas about like what's happening. The main one and the most likely one, there's two most likely options to that. One is we are basically just ants and like don't have the technological ability to receive any kind of information from these extremely advanced species, which is what SETI believes, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligent Life. They solely look for like robotic mechanical life form. They don't look for like meat-based life because like at some nobody doesn't understand. But like they look for things that like, because they've like, you know, these species would have uploaded their consciousness to some sort of like
Holy
like
shit.
yeah like non like biological form long ago, because it's like this is not something that's going to last very long,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
That's like one of the more plausible options. The second one is that reality as we know it just doesn't exist, and like that we are just like
You're in a matrix.
yeah, we're in a matrix. We, you know, who knows what, but like those are the two like most common kind of arguments against the great filter, which is like both not great. Like, you know, people being like aliens don't exist, like ghosts don't exist. Yeah. Like that's so, I want somebody to like posit like basically like the Fermi paradox for like life after death and like ghosts, and say like, okay, what are the actual options?
Mm-hmm.
What would make the most sense? And what is the likelihood that that is? Because like we did it for aliens, like why not do it for, you know, these other things too? But then it would like eradicate religion and nobody would be okay with that. So
Right.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing keeping some people on an okay balance of their life.
to argued. Is anybody actually okay? Anyway,
You're not
that
okay.
like I think about the Fermi paradox like daily.
To stay.
You can
Okay.
stay. Come hang out.
But more, Jacob and I have talked about this a lot too, that like he's my friend that I talk to about anything weird.
Yeah.
Like, nothing is ever too weird, right? So like that's why I keep referencing him, because he's really the only person I talk to about these things.
You're like, I
know
have more friends. I promise.
that their eyes won't glaze over. Or a lot of people, you know, you'll start talking to them and they're just like, what?
Oh yeah, I've gone off on that so many times, and people are like, okay, Jess.
Okay. But it's more comforting. He said it's more comforting for to like put your head in the sand.
100%.
It's like people don't really want to know. But that leads me sometimes to feel
Back.
okay. Maybe
You're back? Oh, he just left for a while.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
want to leave, but he had to, then he came back.
We've talked about, you know, I feel like it takes them energy to manifest in any sort of way. So like I think that's why sometimes we'll get that look where they'll be I can't stay or whatever. And then they'll be like, we're back or whatever. Because I think it takes them some time.
That's crazy.
What was I gonna say?
You were talking about Jacob and that he's not your only friend. What were you talking
Oh,
about?
no. It leads to, I understand the purpose of like why people don't want to go
Oh,
into
yeah.
it.
Head in the sand, right.
Yeah. It is much easier with your head in the sand, right? Definitely more palatable and less scary, I think, for some people. That drives me crazy because like, especially lately with everything going on, like I feel a lot almost every day that I'm Truman in the Truman Show.
Yeah, totally.
And people are like, have you tried the chocolate mocha? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, she's like advertising in her kitchen and she's like shaking and terrified, but she's like, have you tried? It's the best thing ever.
And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like that on the daily.
Yeah.
Like usually on the daily.
On the reg, yeah.
I feel very... it's frustrating sometimes. I understand, right, that it's hard to like, I guess, open your eyes or maybe like question things.
Scary. Yeah.
But it's scarier to me to not. It's scarier to me because I start feeling like I'm living in like the Stepford wives, and I'm like the only one that hasn't been body snatched.
But isn't that like interesting? Because if you think about like the people that are the most comfortable here, they're the people that like fit the normal, like the kind of like normative fit of our society. Like, right? They're like, oh, okay, like I exhibit these qualities in my life. I am this way. And therefore, like, I don't need to question everything. And that's why I feel like, you know, when you start to question something like your sexuality or something that's such an innate part of who you are that goes so far against what society has told you is okay, you're like, well, why stop there? Like, I should just continue to question everything because, like, maybe what I've been told my whole life isn't actually true.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that it's so much more common for people that have some sort of difference of some kind that, like, society has told them is not okay, like mental illness or, you know, is some alternative like gender presentation or sexuality or, you know, whatever it may be. Like, of course, they're the ones that are going to be questioning the validity of what society has told us because they have to, because they don't fit it. So it makes sense to me that like a lot of people that do fit those norms are the ones with their head just stuck so far in the sand.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating and like super, it's sad too. Like, it's sad that like we have the capacity to know so much and we have discovered so much. The cupboard?
That's weird.
We could be using our brains that have like, it's an evolutionary miracle, like the human brain, to discover so much more about the world and our universe and people and get like actual real interesting answers. And instead we're like, nah, dude, God.
Like this, like,
yeah,
it's fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah. But I think God, like the religion and like kind of paranormal investigation and the interest in things like aliens and things like that all come from the same place, which is just to try to understand like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And some of it makes a lot more sense to me than others, which, yeah, so.
That was a really good point, though, about how I think it just depends on what you call it, right?
All right. Scratch that.
It depends on what you call it, because if something like miraculous happens.
He's super pissed off. He's like, you're getting it so wrong.
If somebody is religious and like something miraculous happens, it's just like, that's the way that they explain it, right? But if on the other hand, you say anything else, it's just like, what is more modernly acceptable in like society, right? And that's been like that for historical, like past, I mean, just in general, right? Because even so, like, say the same thing happens, but someone allots it to like magic or something like that, and then they're burned at the stake. Yeah, literally. And I'm like, what is the fucking difference? It's just like, it's all the same thing. We're just calling it different stuff. Yeah, it's all fear. It's all fear of the unknown and fear of a lack of power. And like, maybe we're right about this one because it's like, and it's also like, yes. I mean, it also doesn't surprise me that like and this is most of the people that I met, so I won't, you know, make a sweeping generalization here, but like most of the people that I've met that are in like actually interested in investigating like paranormal experiences tend to be women. I think that that's definitely, you know, not always the case. But the group that I went with to the Eastern State Penitentiary was all women. And if you think about, like the Salem witch trials or like these like kind of, or any witch trial around the world, these like witch trials, which like were just a means to control this incredibly persecuted population. Not to say that some of them weren't, you know, actually dabbling in magic or like had some sort of unexplainable skill or, you know, whatever it is, but it's such a like religion, and it's just a means of control. It's a means of control that like to avoid being afraid. Yeah. And that's really sad that like that's I don't know, it's one of the most significant structures that we've built in society. I mean, and to be clear, we invented religion. Like religion is not a part of nature. Like we were just like, not spirituality necessarily or like, you know, connection or whatever, but like religion itself, like we just made it up. Yeah. And it's just stories. It's so sad that that's like
something that we've put so much effort and time into in like human history.
Yeah. And persecuted so many people for it.
Yeah. It's like, and I think there are religions that are probably a lot closer to the truth than like Christianity, because like they don't use hate as like an attribute, and like they don't use it to harm people, but it's, I don't know.
Again.
Yeah.
So cool. Pause that for a second, because there was a part of in the alien thing again. Like the words in there were so impactful and true to like what I think is like very close to the truth.
Yeah.
I think even if it was like a recreation or reenacted thing.
Yeah. I'm super interested.
I gotta find it because okay. So they had said basically to travel in time is to travel in space, offset spatial divergence. You're not capable of comprehending or accepting discoveries of my time, the origin of the universe, the nature of so-called life. And then the interviewer says, you know the meaning of life? And they said, not meaning, nature. And then they said, what's the difference? And he said, meaning is something that is ascribed. Nature is the objective reality.
And I was perfectly said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the best description I've ever heard of. And then that was the same interview that was talking about religious and political dogma being the root of basically all human suffering.
Yeah. That's like I love that. I like that line a lot. Well, yeah, people like, but that's like where we've all in general is that we humans don't have a very good like ability of understanding the line between what is something that we are saying and something that is real. Like we don't do well with that. Like when we believe something, we think that it's true. Yeah. And like that belief is like, I mean, and I don't know if I can actually say this and be scientifically, correct, but like I don't really think that most other animals in the world are going out there being like, I believe this, and like it's not true. Like they have experience in it is a hard time. Like they have experiences and then they like adapt to those experiences. But it's nature. Yeah, we believe stuff that is literally just came out of our brain and like can't. And so we're like meaning versus nature. Like that's such an interesting like comparison where like what's the meaning of life, and it's like that's something that we made that up, that there is one, and then we're always seeking that out, you know what I mean? And like it's a very different thing than what nature actually is. Like nature is like very, very true. And I started thinking about that like even like in our own built realities, right? Because humanity in general, we can't even trust our own memories. Oh, not at all. Right? Because you're remembering the last time you remembered something. So it's like this like oh my God, human memory is like. Yeah, I mean, it's not a scientific thing that can be measured properly because it's all created in our own little brains and we're all choosing to, I guess, certainly regurgitate it because of our own faulty brains. Yeah. Right? So like it's filtered through our vision. Jess and I could have the exact same experience. You could ask us about it 10 years from now, and she'll say something completely different than my experience because it's filtered through your eyes. So like it's all my other experiences. You know? And so I think it is very interesting to think our reality is created. Like my reality is my reality. Yeah. It's what I've built, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like Matrixy, where it's like I am building my own reality. My thoughts and everything like that, like what I actually think about my life and like my friends and my relationships and all like that is my reality, but it's not actually the truth either, but it's my truth. So it's a little tricky and a little confusing, but nature is very different. Like nature just is what it is. There isn't any. It just is. It exists. It doesn't have to have necessarily a meaning. Yeah. It's just very, very true. And I've never really thought about it like that before. And I don't think that it has a meaning. Like, I don't think that nature itself, like, or the nature of anything has a meaning. Because if you talk about, like, the nature of truth, like, I think that's where you can really get down the rabbit hole of, like, okay, so my truth is this thing that I experienced. But that experience, like you said, like, if we were talking in 10 years from now, we go back to this conversation and I'm, like, thinking about, like, what I did this morning, other conversations I've had like this, where I'm at like emotionally in my life, like all of these other things that are impacting my view of what's happening right now, like you're going to have like a totally different view of this. But the nature of truth then becomes, okay, well, luckily we have luckily we have a recording of it, which helps. But it's just another piece of like the human brain that like I don't think that we acknowledge enough, which is that we are such valuable creatures. Like we're so wrong so often.
Yeah.
And like our inability to accept that goes back to the same reason that like people are afraid of ghosts or people are putting their heads in the sand, which is like we don't want to be in danger. Like we just want to be comfortable, happy, and have no fear. And like, which evolutionarily that kind of makes sense. But like with our position in the world, like humans evolved so quickly to be like at the top of the food chain. If you look at like sharks and other apex predators, like they evolved over millions and millions and millions of years. They had time to establish their dominance. And so they're not insecure about it.
Yeah.
But like humans didn't. We were just like, oh, look, fire. And now we're on top. And like, that's in our giant brains, just like, and we were like, are we really on top? Like, we're just such a fucking insecure species that like, and it's caused so many problems for us. And like, yeah, the nature of truth becomes, I don't even know if I could really define what truth is anymore.
No. And it's kind of like, then you get into, it's like the quantum decision like test, where they measured particles being scattered, and then when they had actual viewers viewing them going through these like the double slit thing, their brains, they would rearrange themselves based on the viewer, right? But then it's kind of like if the tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? And then you get into that whole spiel. So like how much of our reality is actually nature and reality, and what is constructed by our own psyche?
Probably a lot. Yeah.
So when it comes to things that can't be explained, or like religion or anything like that, I think it's very silly to think. I don't know. Like I'm like, if you're gonna believe in that, then be a little bit more open and understand there are things like we're all constructing continuously for our whole lives.
Yeah.
So maybe don't be so set on something and be so sure, because like we don't really know. Like,
well, that's like that. Yeah, we don't know. We're not sure. And another like kind of concept in human psychology that I find like related to this and very fascinating is called the backfire effect, which is like how we respond to people telling us something that we don't believe. And like, generally it's become more and more prominent in our culture because with the advent of like social media and like the 24-hour news cycle and the internet and access to all this information, like we all start to believe that we're experts on anything because we can just like Google it and then we're like, I know the answer. But the backfire effect is basically the psychological phenomenon that occurs when somebody tells you, no, you're wrong about this. And if you imagine like your brain as a house and you say, okay, the lawn outside is like things that I believe, but like somebody came in and planted a plant, maybe I'd let it grow. Like maybe I'd, see this change in my yard. It's things that you can adapt your mind to, And so if somebody says something to you like, this thing happens and it challenges this like, okay, come back though. It challenges something like minimal in your belief. You can accept it. You're not going to like freak out.
Sure.
Then you have the inside of your house, which is like, maybe later, which is like things you hold pretty close to your heart. Like maybe like your belief in like your partner's fidelity or something like that. Where like if something happens to challenge that and you really see proof that, that's not the case, you would change, but it would be really hard. It would be hard.
Yeah.
And then you have like your bedroom. And your bedroom beliefs are like who you are as a person. Like these things that make you like your true core belief. Like in the past, like things like your political belief or your religion. Like for some people those are like yard beliefs or like house beliefs. But with the advent of like social media and like the internet, like I was saying, so many more beliefs are held in your bedroom because you've decided I now have all the information I ever need to believe these things. And like our political views become a part of that. And like these things that like shouldn't be a core nature, like true piece of who you are as a person. Like who I voted for shouldn't be a core part of who I am as a person.
Yeah, right.
My beliefs that led me to that, like maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if he's back. Nice. If what happens if somebody challenges a core belief, like a bedroom belief,
Mm-hmm.
you like have the same physiological response as if somebody's physically attacking you.
Right.
Yeah. And so that is not great when you
No.
think about like how we're supposed to like move humanity forward and continue to delve into topics like aliens exist and here they are and here are these interviews and ghosts are real and here's this experience I had. And it challenges these bedroom beliefs of people that they just can't accept. And so they fight you about it or they run away.
Yeah.
And how are we supposed to get past that? Like
That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I have read about that before.
Yeah.
And that is how, I think that's something that I've been trying to like break down over time. But I think most of the people that I know and associate with, the people that I know.
I was going to say, like, go on.
Most of the people that I am close with are usually, with a few that are a little bit more like stern on like what they believe, are pretty open to, and I think that's just a sign of intelligence, honestly. Like anytime that somebody is like super sure about anything that literally cannot be proved, and even some things, honestly, even scientific thing, there's a lot of stuff throughout history that was proved or a scientific fact that ended up being absolutely not. So like even
just straight
questioning
garbage.
scientific things or mathematical things, like I think is really intelligent not to take anything as 100% truth. Anytime someone is like that,
I'm behind you.
okay, I question their intelligence, basically.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a lot better to be open. Even if I have very strong beliefs in something, I feel like when we pass, it's not the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Companion behind us, chilling.
But I also am willing to admit, I don't really know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe it's one of the Eastern State guys who came to hang out. I totally agree with that. I think that we are not smart enough as an animal to have a firm understanding of like the nature of life and reality, and doing the research that you can and like gathering as much knowledge. Like that's like really, I think the thing that like I find myself most passionate about in life is like just being informed about like everything that I could possibly be informed about.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, access to knowledge is so, again, it's like such a privilege. Like not everybody in the world has that. And like, that's really, really sad that that's like how we've, ended up. But it also gets you to do things like this, which is like, talk about things that I don't understand. I don't understand every like experience that I've had that feels paranormal. But I am open to it enough that I'm not like, I don't feel so sure of myself that like science is real, but it can't explain everything. And so while I consider myself like very scientifically minded, I also not going to be like, have this giant ego that's like, no, it's not a ghost. It's a this or it's a that. And like, you have to have that open mind if you're actually going to move humanity and our knowledge forward.
Yeah.
Like, cause if you can't just think you know everything, which is what most people feel now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people are so sure about things.
Yeah.
But I have found the most intelligent people or the most open people, they tend to be both the same. That the more you actually know about things, the more you realize you know nothing.
Yeah.
Because that is the case. The more you dig into this stuff, it's just
yeah, you're just like, oh, I have literally no idea what's going on.
And that's just the truth. I mean, that is the truth. That like the more you dig, the less you know. And I feel like that's how it should be. If you're doing it right. If you stop at any one thing and you're like, oh, for sure, then you should probably.
Yeah, like what do you think is something that you know for sure? Like just one thing. Because like I don't know if I could point to like a single thing besides the fact that like I love my cats and like things like that.
Sure.
Yeah,
I love my cat.
But like about the realities of the world, like there is suffering. That's one thing, and there is like. How
did I die?
We don't know.
Probably from suffering.
We wish that we could tell you, but we don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm not really sure. That's a really hard question.
Yeah, I don't, and I think that so many people think that they know the answer, and it is religion. Like, I think that
Oh,
is
for
like
sure.
that is like what they know.
I just always like my issue with religion always was that I had a lot of issues with religion, but I grew up. Is that sun like really hot on your face?
No, it actually feels really nice. I'm just like, does it look really hot on my face? Or is
It's
it like,
possible.
am I just like really bright, glowing with the knowledge of everything?
Oh, okay. That's not terrifying.
Okay. If I just like lean like this, it's better.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, balls.
Cat ball. Okay, here we go.
I think that I don't remember what I think.
About the nature of the world and what you actually know.
Oh no, my issues with religion.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
grew up religious.
Yeah.
Godly.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. But I think we're all our own gods in a way. But so my biggest thing, and this is how I knew, I was like, oh, I was off to an early start within like my understanding of not putting yourself in like the I know everything box because it's a really stupid place to be.
Yeah.
I didn't understand because I had a lot of issues with the Baptist religion in general. Like don't even get me started on that. It's just
that's a
basically
whole
all
other
of it.
podcast.
But I started learning about other worldly religions, like from everywhere, right? Cast
Yeah, a lot more.
Cast aside the fact that they all have very odd, similar stories that they stole from each
They're
other,
identical.
et cetera, et cetera. It made me question. I was like, because people are so sure, like you said, so sure that their religion is the one, is the true religion. But I always thought everyone feels like that about their religion. Yeah. And so like, what makes yours the right one and mine the wrong one, or vice versa? And like, who's to say? Like, maybe we're the wrong ones and they're the right ones and we're all going to hell, you know? And so it started me thinking on this journey, and then it just made no sense to me. It fell apart after that because I didn't find myself. I think people that are very, very sure are very narcissistic and egocentric, because to think that your way is the only way or the right way is very that. And so like that to me is just very, I don't know, like just be mindful about like how you're approaching that. It's not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong to have religion. I think if it offers you something that you need in your life, like solace or purpose or whatever, fine, you know, do whatever you feel like is right for you, but just be very careful about condemning others for something that's different, because it makes you look real stupid. For lack of better words.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It's like, it's when you decide you know something, or you know something better than somebody else, you're functionally saying, I am better than you. Mm-hmm. I am more intelligent than you. I'm more informed than you. I have access to better resources than you. Mm-hmm. And that is like so, I mean, that's like that's our biggest problem. Like, it's our biggest problem is like the I know better than you. Mm-hmm. And like, you should do what I'm telling you to do, because like, it's such a, I mean, it's really hard for us to see life outside of our own experience, because we never will, like, well, at least as far as we understand, you know, like, I'm never going to be able to sit where you're sitting and like have this conversation with me as you. Yeah. But like, I still know that you are having just as much like deep internal processing than I am. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that it really boils down to like who we see as people and who we see as like people that matter and people that don't matter. And that's a really, 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 really dangerous like way to see the world. And it's very, very scary. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like, you know, my kind of pursuit of truth in whatever that means is because like, I don't want to be that. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be that person who's like, nah, I'm better. Like, I get it. You don't. Yeah. Because like, I don't get it.
We don't fucking get it. We don't know anything.
Yeah, seriously.
Bouncing ideas off of each other. He's like, you're going to hell, both of you.
Well, it'll be a party. I hear it's pretty cool down there.
Yeah. I like it warm.
Yeah. Warm.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We pretty much nailed that.
I have to tell you my favorite ghost experience.
Oh, so. Yeah. Okay, so talking a lot
About a lot of things.
about a lot of things. I think we'll have to have Jess back because I feel like we only scratched the
Oh my God, there's so
surface.
much more we can talk about.
But I do want to hear, first of all, I did want to ask, how do you normally experience like auditory or visible or whatever? How do you experience it?
So with the stories that I've already told, like they've been like visual in terms of like things happening around me, not
Right.
necessarily like seeing an entity or
Right.
like I often have like a feeling associated with it, which is,
It was an accident.
oh, yeah, that's how Diane died, or like who knows? Diane, come back to us on that.
Be quiet.
Okay. She's like, you're talking over me. I will say I have had one single like truly disorienting experience besides like the waking up in the bed, which like could have been like a child sleeping or like maybe like, I don't know. That was weird.
But both of you had that?
Yeah, that
happen?
was like super
Yeah,
odd.
I mean, come on now.
Yeah, she didn't remember it either. She's like, what are
Weird.
we doing in here? And I was like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's bizarre.
When I was probably like 14, I also grew up going to church. I went to an Episcopalian church, and it was like a very liberally minded place. And my mom later told me, you know, the reason I was adamant about you going to church is so that when you got to high school, you'd have something you could rebel against that was like healthy. And I was like, that's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, I love that, Mom.
Yeah, it turns out like I was like a pretty good student, and like that's pretty much all that I was like, this is stupid. But I did youth group in my church, and we were there often like in the evening, like doing whatever it may be, like cooking dinner or, you know, whatever. I really liked the church building. I thought it was like super beautiful, and like I always felt like really safe there.
Mhm.
There were a lot of like queer people in the congregation and in like the ministry. So that felt very comfortable to me because I was already at the time like, pretty sure I'm gay.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice, even though like my internal struggle with that was much more difficult. But I never felt pressure from that part of my life to like be different. And I was at youth group one night, and for some reason the bathroom near us like wasn't working, I guess. And so I had to go like through, like basically across, it was a pretty big church, like across this whole church to this other bathroom. And there was nobody there. It was nighttime. And I went into the bathroom, and with the exception of like visiting the like Civil War battlefield and like that whole night, I'd never had like any like real like what felt like a ghost experience.
Mhm.
I had a very like odd, like kind of real life dream once, but I went into the bathroom and I was in the stall, and I heard the door open, and I was like, oh, like, I guess somebody else is here. I heard somebody walking, and they stopped like in front of my stall. And I was like, there's like so many other stalls
Did
open
you
in
see
here.
their feet?
I didn't
or-
see any, there's no
Okay.
feet. I didn't look at that point because I was
Mhm.
like, and then my door started shaking. Like it was like shaking, like rattling. And
Tired.
oh Jesus, look at this. It was like, and I was like terrified. Like I was like, at first I was like, what the F? I was like, somebody's in here.
Yeah, you're like, obviously.
And it just like got more like intense. And I was like scared. Like
Yeah.
I didn't feel scared of like whatever it was. Like I wasn't like, this thing wants to hurt me. I was just
Yeah.
like, what is happening?
Right.
So I like immediately like opened the door, and like there was just nothing out there. And like,
and then it just stopped.
yeah, then it was over. And I remember feeling like, you know, I at that point I'd read about, you know, people's experiences with like ghosts and things like that, and like that people often had feelings of like intense positivity or like legitimate fear and terror, depending on like what kind of entity they were encountering. And I didn't really feel either of those. But I just felt weird. Like I just
Yeah.
felt like I was so certain something like very odd had just happened.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was like malevolent in any sense or like trying to harm me.
Yeah.
And it never happened again there. Like, and it was just, I remember like walking back from the bathroom and just feeling like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, like what could possibly explain this? Like maybe there was like some sort of like issue with like a heating system or like whatever that like could have shook the door, but like None of the other doors had shaken, and like I could tell, like I could hear it was only my door.
Yeah. Well, and you could feel like, or you could tell someone came in.
Exactly. And like hearing the door and the footsteps too was odd. And I left the bathroom pretty quickly. Like I just like, there was no one around. Like they would have been somewhere. Like, cause I mean, the door stopped shaking and I opened it.
Yeah. They would have still been at least in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no logical explanation that I could come up with and that I haven't been able to come up with in like the rest of me thinking about this in my life.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most like visceral experience that I had. And I would say that like, it's that kind of thing where like, I've never feel like I've seen a ghost. But I've like experienced them in some capacity, which often comes with like a physical manifestation of some kind. Yeah.
Well, and I thought about your talking about how you weren't like necessarily afraid of like what it was, right?
Yeah.
More like just like, it's not a common thing that happens to you when you're going to the restroom.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what the fuck?
For example, any kind of entity from the other side. First of all, if ghost or paranormal things, if a lot of them are just like passed on people, there's going to be good people and bad people. You know what I mean? And same thing with like alien species and things like that. It's silly to think that it's just one type completely, right?
Yeah.
But even with the ones that are benevolent, it takes a lot for them to manifest in any sort of way. So even if it seems scary or negative, a lot of the times it's probably not. It's just them trying to like let themselves be known.
Yeah.
And maybe
That
it comes
makes
across
sense.
as like a little much. You know what I mean?
Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is not what I expected in this moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not, maybe it's somebody that's newer, maybe to the other side, or somebody that's like trying to figure it out. Like I watched this one show that was really sweet, where this family was being haunted, and so they had like a paranormal crew come in and like try to investigate it, and they thought it was like the dad that was that because he had recently passed. But the more they investigated, they like kept on like calling the name, and like just like nothing was happening. They weren't getting anything. They were just like, I don't think he's here. Like I don't think it's him. It turns out it was the grandfather that had been gone for years, but he was specifically trying to contact one of the boys, like one of the sons, because he was a pilot and the son had taken interest in planes. He had like this experience of like somebody yelling audibly near him, and he got really afraid and like ran. You know what I mean? Because obviously anybody would. And so they had asked, when they finally realized who it was and started actually communicating with him like through a spirit box, they asked him, and they think they were doing the Estes method as well. So it was like, it was removed. They didn't, it was more true to like what they were, experiencing or hearing. But they asked like, was that you that yelled in your grandson's ear? And he said, yeah, it was me. And they were like, oh, like, why would you do that? He was really afraid. And he's like, I didn't mean to. Like, it was on accident.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't mean to, basically.
Like, it's not like super easy to communicate after.
So,
which makes sense.
It was probably like him being like just trying to let him know that he was there. And then it just came across really aggressively. And then he was like, whoops.
My bad.
Sorry.
Scared you.
But that like changed the way I thought about a lot of paranormal things. And so now... anytime I get anything, I'm like super excited and super happy and super grateful, because I think it does take a lot for them to make themselves known. And like sometimes like something like that could seem scary, but that's just because.
Sister.
Hello. Oh, I have a sister that passed.
Huh.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Christine, if that's you.
Hello, Christine.
But yeah, it made me start thinking about different. So like something like that, even though it seems scary as like a physical manifestation, because it's not something that happens to you on an everyday occurrence. Yeah. It might not have been. So like I feel like it's also like trust your gut. So like if you didn't feel like you were in danger, you probably weren't. Right. But it probably was like a what the fuck situation.
Yeah, and like I totally agree with that. And I think, the kind of modern culture doesn't really help us with that, because most of the publicized ghost stories are terrifying, and like they're like of true hauntings where people are being like actively pursued in some degree. But like I would say the vast majority of experiences with this, if you really like looked at the whatever data you could capture, would be perfectly harmless. Yeah. I think if I had another, and hopefully if I have another and when I have another experience like that, like, I mean, that one was so physical that it was like, I doubt, who knows if that would ever happen, to me again. But I would feel very like, at Eastern State, that happened like while I was an adult. I felt just like, privileged to be there and like excited.
Yeah.
There's always anything that you don't expect is jarring.
Yeah.
But I don't think it necessarily, means it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're not trying to hurt you if they're like yelling to get your attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just trying to be like, yo, I'm here.
Well, and we don't know, I've thought a lot about that, right? Because like, we don't know how it's like on the other side either for them. So for us, like it's not like we can hear.
Yeah, it's not like we're trying. We're like, hey.
Yeah. But like we have to use things to even know that they're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people like hear auditory things, but for the most part, we need help figuring that out.
Yeah.
And so I think there has to be some sort of thing that's like hard to get through the veil, basically.
Yeah.
So like, why would we not think it's the same for them? Like where it's like where they might try and they might be yelling when we hear whispers.
Yeah.
Command.
Yeah. Because like if it was easy, it would happen all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it just made me think about hauntings differently, very differently.
Definitely.
They're not like scary most of the time, even if they feel like it.
Yeah. I 100% agree.
I love that experience.
Well, yeah, it was weird. It was definitely like odd. I think about it a lot.
So you had a lot of experiences when you were younger, and then you had those. Do you have them pretty regularly, or just they're spread out?
Not really. I mean, I've like been places where I've like wondered if something was around or like, but I haven't like had a like repetitive experience or like, no, like, oh, if I go here, like I'll be with this kind of thing. Like it's not like, it's not common. Which is fine. I'm still very open to it. And like I've read a ton about it, and I like, have definitely had like when I was a kid, again, like a lot of like night terrors and anxiety that like could be like attributed to that.
I want to have a whole episode about night terrors. Maybe I'll have a few, because Jacob also has had night terrors, and he said it's the scariest.
It is terrifying. Thing. Yeah, it is.
Or sleep paralysis.
I have only had that once, and it was like absolutely horrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think there's any, at least in the spaces that I go to regularly. Like I have friends that have like my friend Jenna definitely like has a ghost in the house she grew up in, and like they've named it and everything. And like, I talk to my dad a lot about this because he is also like quite scientifically minded, but like fascinated by, aliens and ghosts and things like that. So I get to like talk about it a lot, and I like love, a good ghost hunter binge, but it's not since I, left Philly, I haven't like done anything around Atlanta, and I would really like to like get back into it.
Okay. So, I was looking into that recently because I went on a ghost tour. It was okay. But I really want to do an investigation. Yeah. But I don't know if that's even a thing in Atlanta.
You totally can. I feel like I'm trying to think of like where in Atlanta. I mean, there's got to be some like.
There's an old like an insane asylum that's like, I think it's in Milledgeville.
Yeah.
I went there one time for a shoot, and it definitely has the vibes. But I don't know if it's something, there's a lot of parts of the building that's condemned that they don't let people in just for liability. But it would be really interesting to like try to reach out to them. I don't know if they'd be open to that, but we should.
They would. Yeah, we should totally do that. Yeah, that would be
Since
sick.
You have like experience with that. I've never tried to do that. Or I wonder if there's anyone here that does them that we could just like even tag along with.
I bet, yeah. Atlanta's such a big city, and it's got such a like bloody history that like it's not, the oldest city because it's, first of all, in the United States, but second of all, it's like there's so much happened here. Like the whole city burned down.
Yeah,
and like I bet you like there are certain areas like even just right outside the like main downtown, like because even in downtown, I bet there's some crazy shit, or like down in the Gulch or whatever. But I will happily look into that. We'll do like a whole podcast from like an overnight. Yeah, definitely. That would be super fun, because I do miss. It's also like such a uniting experience. Like, I'm not really close or anything with any of those girls anymore that I went with, but like while I was there, like they were such an important part of my like social community.
Yeah, sure.
And I definitely have friends here that like would be super down.
Let's fucking
Yeah.
go. Let's put together a crew.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. And I feel like the winter is like a great time to do it.
Yeah.
Everything's like just dark early and like.
We'll try to find that
Yeah.
soon.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it for sure.
Plan. I think that's a good place to
I mean, we
wrap.
crushed it.
We absolutely crushed it. He says goodbye.
Oh yeah.
And
You've been great.
yeah, 10 out of 10. Tell if you want
Oh.
people. I always tell people like if you want to be found on like socials, I can put
Oh,
them
yeah.
here. I'll put them here.
Yeah. Here
You
they
can-
are.
you can- is there anything else you want to shout out or anything like that that you are working on or want to like anything?
That I'm working on. Oh, you should all go buy Cantrip. You can buy direct
Oh, yeah.
delivery in Georgia. It's legal.
Yeah.
It'll get you high. And high ghost hunting would be very fun.
It's delish. I think it would open you up a little too.
Yeah, probably. Other than that, yeah, just keep your minds open and know that you don't know anything at all.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
Don't listen to us. Do your own research.
Yeah, literally like ignore the whole podcast.
You just wasted an hour and a half of your life.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.